welcome. My name is Gopal Krishnan, Associate Editor of OEM Update Magazine, and I welcome you all to the OEM Update Magazine's interactive session on essential automation techniques for SMEs. I have my colleague, Ms. Rajeshwari, Editorial OEM Update Magazine, to introduce the panelists and tell you more about this interactive session.
Thank you, Mr. Gopal. Hello, everyone, and welcome to OEM Updates Magazine's interactive session on essential automation techniques for SMEs. The automation and use of robots in the Indian manufacturing sector have revolutionized traditional manufacturing. Automation is transforming how brands operate, allowing them to do more with less, since automation is the key to operational efficiency. Industrial automation plays a vital role in improving manufacturing efficiency and productivity. Digital automation can be an essential tool that can be leveraged by small and medium-sized enterprises, that is SMEs, to increase productivity and save time. India aims to be a $5 trillion economy by 2025. The Indian SME sector is deliberating on making the transition. However, motivation is the key, as there is an impending need for small businesses to invest in automation compared with large industries. According to CII, SMEs account for around 35% of total manufacturing output and over 45% of exports. With the evolving needs of the growing business in an increasing digitized world, companies should focus on picking the technology while switching processes to automation. Automation will allow small businesses to increase output and be more data-driven. More prominent industries and SMEs seeking growth must adopt automation tools for data-driven decision-making. Furthering automation, focusing on hyper-automation is essential. Combining technologies like robotic process automation, AI, machine learning, advanced analytics, etc. Flexibility, ease of use, and easy programming are the most critical criteria that robots fulfill to help businesses, especially SMEs, to meet future production challenges. For manufacturing companies, cobots are an economical alternative to expensive industrial robots. They make automation affordable, especially for SMEs, as they form the base of the Indian manufacturing industry. On this note, today we have come together to witness an engaging interactive session on essential automation techniques for SMEs. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and a privilege for me to introduce you to today's distinguished speakers, Mr. Rajesh Nath, Managing Director, VDMA India Services Private Limited, Mr. Himanshu Sharma, Head of Marketing and Corporate Communication, B&R Industrial Automation, Mr. Zarwan Marulia, Senior Vice President of Godrej & Voice, Mr. Bipin B. Jirge, Managing Director of IFM Electronic India Private Limited, and Mr. Gajanan Jadhav, the Senior Manager, Channel Marketing, Factory Automation and Industrial Division of Mitsubishi Electrical India Pune.
Mr. Jarvan, today we are taking a significant step in making 5G a reality for our country. How do you think this will impact digital transformation for Indian SMEs?
Good evening, Mr. Gopal Krishna, and good evening to my co-panelists. Pleasure to be on this panel. I think this opening question is one which what I would say is that today digital transformation, in my view, is still in its infancy. And at least for the SMEs to which we are currently focusing our discussion, we really are not at a point where there would be cutting edge advantage of having a 5G over an existing 4G. So it's almost like, asking a person with a learner's license whether he'd prefer a Lamborghini over So I think we're really not there as yet. I wouldn't even look upon that as a constraint at the moment. For the SMEs, again, of course, there are, some of the larger players who are in a more advanced state where connectivity does become critical. And this is probably where I would like to kind of talk about the fact that when we talk of automation, let's not mix up automation and digitization. Of course, one will lead to the other. The ultimate aim is the digitization and the interconnectivity, but there are a lot of preparatory steps which, as I see it in the SMEs sector, still needs to be made. Of course, there are some, again, there would be exceptions to it, but I have the opportunity of working with a lot of SMEs along with CII. I'm also a member of the National Manufacturing Council, and I can safely say that today we are in our infancy where that is concerned, which is where I seek to be talking later on about appropriate automation as well.
Thank you, Mr. Jarvan, for taking up. Yes, we are still at the infancy stage. I would like to ask you what essential techniques or features can encourage SMEs to adopt automation?
So automation, okay, let me put it this way, that I think we have to be clear that any initiative taken has got to be with an ultimate view and sight at the customer. Finally, when I do interact with a lot of the SMEs and I specifically address their workforce, I always ask this question to the workforce, saying, "Aapki tankhwa kaun deta hai?" So we have to recognize that finally it's the customer who really can make or break. And therefore, whatever we do has to be with that customer in mind. Now, today's customers have expectations in terms of quality, in terms of delivery, in terms of cost. So what we need to look at is we need to analyze our process and prioritize what are the areas in which we are going to work on streamlining our cost by removing the non-value added components of our cost, improving our quality through consistency, which is something which automation gives. And when we control that, we are also able to improve our delivery. So really these things go hand in hand. So it's a question of how we can basically strip away the non-value added, strip away the repetitive. Automation is really giving us consistency, it's giving us predictability, and it's giving us visibility.
That's right. Visibility has to be there. Mr. Rajesh, according to you, how critical is it to have global technology alliances for Indian companies moving ahead with Industry 4.0 and 5.0?
Good evening to all the participants also. Good evening to all the co-panelists who are here today. When we look at the Indian scenario, Mr. Gopal Krishnan, actually ours is a very complex scenario. We have a lot of MSMEs. In fact, we have almost 63 million MSMEs in India, and 99% of them employ less than 10 people. And what is also important in the Indian scenario is that the MSME, the SMEs, these are the backbone of the Indian industry. They contribute, as you had mentioned also in the beginning, they contribute almost 35% to our GDP. And an important factor is they give employment to 120 million people. That's huge in our country. Let's take the broader picture. We are looking to become a $5 trillion economy. If it's 25, 26, or maybe the aim was 2025, but now with the pandemic, we may be pushed to a couple of years later. And manufacturing is contributing about 15 to 16% of our GDP. We want this contribution to increase to 25% of the GDP. So that manufacturing share, when we become a $5 trillion economy, is about $1 trillion. Now, this is a tall order because we are at somewhere around 392 presently. So from 392 million to become a $1 trillion contribution from manufacturing is a huge challenge. And that also in the next, say, maybe 5 years or 6 years down the line. The whole manufacturing is changing. There is a transformation in manufacturing. At present, if we look at the level of automation, generally we say about, even in India, maybe globally, we say about 8 to 10% automation is there in manufacturing. In India, it is less, as Mr. Maruli also mentioned. Maybe here our contribution or share of automation is less. But what the pandemic also has brought forth is it has given a boost to automation. Now, what will be the automation market in India? It has been growing consistently, and we are expecting to see a CAGR of about 10 to 12% in automation market growth of the automation market in India. And what exactly, as you mentioned, Mr. Gopal Krishnan, when we talk about Industry 4.0, it is a combination. We are combining physical and cyber. We are connecting machines. There is a lot of connectivity. We're talking about data. As you mentioned, the earlier question was also very closely connected to Industry 4.0. So we want the whole ecosystem. We want even the SMEs to grow, because without the growth of the SME, India cannot grow, and we have to take them along. So I would fully agree with my previous speaker when he mentioned we have to look at what are the steps that can be adopted in automation. And Industry 4.0, there is a lot of misconception about Industry 4.0. Some think it's a big black box, it's something very complex. SMEs are very scared to go into Industry 4.0 because they feel that we do not have enough knowledge, we do not have skilled manpower. But however, what we strongly believe is that it's a step-by-step process. I strongly am of the opinion that Industry 4.0 is a journey. It's not a destination. It's a journey that you have to take step by step and undertake it in steps and small numbers. And just to conclude, I think the way forward for the Indian MSME is to first do an analysis and see what level of automation, because after all, the cost factor is very important, especially when we talk in the Indian scenario. You have to get a faster return on investment. So I think the first step would be to identify certain, as we say, maybe baby steps, identify where you can implement basic automation and get a fast return of investment. My friend here, Bipin Jirge, he's a big supporter of MSMEs and adoption of automation in MSMEs. So with that, I would end my deliberation and hand it back to you, Mr. Gopal.
Yeah, it's great, Rajesh sir, when you mentioned about the requirement of an entrance level for automation, especially for Indian MSMEs. Do you think the PLI schemes are encouraging this for adopting automated solutions for this kind of entities?
I would say it's an indirect approach. Of course, the PLI is more on manufacturing, but one of the aims of the PLI is also how India can contribute in a bigger way in the global supply chain. Now, our contribution in the global supply chain is very minimal. I think we are less than 2% also. And when we talk about enhancing our manufacturing, exports is going to be one of the major triggers that can help Indian companies also. And for export, you need good quality product, you need efficient manufacturing practices. So as I sometimes mention, what smart manufacturing will lead to is CES, cost-effective, efficient, sustainable, and safe. These are the aspects of smart manufacturing. And if India has to, again, I come back, if India has to grow, we have to take along even the smaller companies, because automation is not something which only big companies can implement. It is equally applicable for smaller, mid-size, micro companies also. It is just what level of automation that can be adopted that is important. But yes, PLI will play a big role in India's growth story, and I'm a firm believer that this will help the manufacturing sector to grow in India, and certainly automation will also be one of the strong pillars on which Indian manufacturing sector.
Excellent thought. Putting Indian companies in the orbit of global supply chain definitely required a lot of cost-cutting edge, because we are competing with international or global companies. Himanshu Sharma, my question to you is, you are someone who offers excellent automation solutions for various industrial verticals. How do you see the adoption of automation, especially for people who want to go to the global level?
Good evening, my co-panelists and also all the attendees. So first of all, as our previous panelists also say, that we have to see the requirement. So we have different manufacturers, and they have different level, whether it is micro, whether it's medium, or whether it's small, and to which requirements of the consumer they cater to. And also we have to see what investment they can do and all the other things, like the adaptations they can take up in a faster way, because there are a lot of technology which is available, but they are not aware of those technologies. So first of all, in order to go to the global level, we need to make them aware about the technologies. So as an automation supplier, we also mostly focus on training all our customers, all our suppliers, so that they can take the leverage of automation. Because if we let them know how automation can make the advantage to their systems, so that they can finally benefit for the end user, or maybe which we can say the customer. So that is how they are going to
get that. Mr. Bipin, when like we initially started the conversation saying that Industry 4.0 is one of the most misunderstood term among the industry. And when we talk about automation, people even try to picturize with robotization. How many robots are in play? How many cobots are in play? How do you see in manufacturing space the acceptance of cobots and robots in Indian space?
Thank you for granting us time. Thank you for the viewers as well as panelists to allow a few minutes here. See, I have been coming from a very small place. I am still in a small place, Rajeshnath Noor, and I am surrounded with small and micro industry or company. Coming to your question, cobots and robots. This is something which is a tool to make all of us efficient. But as Rajeshnath Saab also told, especially when we talk about SMEs and MSMEs, if we show them a robot picture, typically a small, medium-sized company, what I have observed gets afraid. Oh, what you are showing me now. And the first question what he will ask is, how much it costs? How does it help me? And this is a very good and very difficult question for us in automation industry. When we talk about such a huge share of SMEs in our manufacturing GDP, and especially small companies, I think that we should not make them afraid of big work like, AI, ML, robots and cobots and all those things, because they have some basic limitations. First of all, especially when we talk about SMEs and MSMEs, we should start with some basic fundamental questions. And when I visit, say, a micro industry, for example, with 5 machines, I ask usually the owner who runs the whole show, how much percentage of your say 8-hour shift, are your machines really running? That guy really can't give me answer. So we have to start with some basic questions to make them think in the direction of Industry 4 and whatnot. Especially when we have such a huge number of employment occurring in these small and medium industries. Our first job in all of us in automation industry is firstly not to make them afraid, not to throw big jargon and big words which they have to look into the dictionary. And we have to make them aware of basic ways of thinking. When they can find out some basic data which they can find very easily, we have to teach them how. Then it's a question of putting the data on the cloud and real time and all those. And what I have observed, robots and cobots are, say, in a way achieve that next step in an Industry 4 journey. But we all in automation field should actually make our small, medium entrepreneurs a habit of thinking in the terms of real factual data. It may be the simplest data. And when you make the person aware that he has to basically look into how much out of 8 hours his machines are running. It's a very simple data, but I need some point of accuracy and some kind of reliability of the data. This is the first step of making the SME, usually the owner, aware that yes, if he takes care of machine on time, indirectly he is talking about the OEE or whatever big words we are talking. So robots and cobots definitely have a big contribution, but we have to start with a very baby step. That's what I request. And it is the duty of all of us in automation to convince these small players not to throw big words to them. They get afraid to talk about realistic numbers of their investment. Realistic numbers. If you talk in lakhs and crores, that guy has the biggest worry how to pay next month's salary. And we are talking with him investment for few lakhs. So it doesn't gel. It doesn't implement. They will come to the seminar, they will have nice tea, but they won't implement. It's all about implementing these baby steps in our homegrown Indian SMEs and MSMEs, which our colleagues have noted, a huge amount of employment, 120 million or something I heard. And this is a huge population. And if we can make a part of this population aware how they should think about, simple terms, which will add to the baby step, I think a big job from all of us in automation is done as a base to the growth towards journey of this automation or Industry 4 or whatever we call it.
That
we have
makes
to start
really
from
sense.
very simple steps.
That makes really sense that, the baby steps towards automation. Mr. Jadhav, when we talk about taking baby steps towards automation, how do you see localized automation emerging or indigenous automation techniques emerging for this kind of SMEs?
We are trying to make inroads in IoT. We call it as e-factory. This is Mitsubishi's coined word for IoT 4.0. Rather, we say society 5.0. So how this IoT can be used for society. That is our Japanese terminology, society 5.0. And when coming to, say, IoT, we are quite successful in implementing IoT projects or for bigger companies, bearing end customers like Maruti Suzuki, Mahindra and all. But for SMEs and MSMEs, we are trying to find local solutions, as is correctly said by Bipin sir, that there are many other issues of budget. So we are actually trying to find a localized solution, and then Mitsubishi from Japan has designed one e-factory starter package. So this is a starter package completely free from Mitsubishi. So it is like you get a program, you get HMI screens, and you get user manual to start with, and we can implement this East Factory starter package for say greenfield projects as well as brownfield. So even if there is installation, you can install. At the same time, when we need gateways, we have our own gateways also, say from Mitsubishi, but we find it difficult to sell it in India. So we have localized actually gateways also, even cloud solutions. So everything as
So
offering
this is,
is
sorry to
localized.
interrupt you, sir. So this is what you are providing to the market.
Right.
Do you see any kind of such movement in the industry? I expect, anybody who have some idea about that can please comment on that. Do you see any kind of localized movement happens in developing indigenous automation techniques?
See, actually, probably, we are all from Mason Systems. So Mason System is an indigenous brand. So Mitsubishi took over this company, Mason System, in year 2012. We started thinking about this e-factory as a concept quite long back. So this indigenization is there in our products, and now also in Pune, Mitsubishi's fourth R&D center is in Pune, and we are trying to say design and manufacture indigenized products. So we have one small product with 4.3-inch display, and then it has got Modbus TCP port, and say again another 2 months we will be coming up with one MQTT interface for this gateway. So with a price bracket of around say 15,000 or 20,000, you will get a MQTT based or MQTT installed product, MQTT gateway installed. So I believe this is one of the localization effort from Mitsubishi side in India.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Server, you want to say anything?
No, so we at Godrej are also developing systems. In fact, one of our businesses is working on developing these systems, but that again is not something that it is more at the the IoT and the interactive or the interconnectivity, which right now is not something that we are discussing. We are discussing more at the basic level, but yes, we at Godrej have also started develop a solution for this.
I'm sure you must be covering further more details about this in your
It is more on the manufacturing execution system, which I would put as almost the pinnacle of the journey.
Rajesh sir, to give a closing statement for the session. I'm sure it will be very appropriate.
I think we had a very good session today. There were a lot of good, valuable inputs. But I think important is from all the speakers, what came out is one, that there is no way out for the MSME. The MSME will have to adopt automation to some extent. Now, as Mr. Surwan also mentioned, and I think Bipin also highlighted, and also the other speaker mentioned about it, this concept of baby steps, or looking at the low-hanging fruits, what can be implemented by the SMEs, so that they grow also along, their business grows, there is better production efficiency, better quality of products. With that, you can target the export market, be good suppliers to prominent companies like Godrej and Boyce also. So I think that is important, that the SME sectors grow, and automation will play an important role. But there is no hard and fast rule. Each company would have to look at their own needs and adopt automation as per their requirements. This cannot be a black box that everybody buys one black box and puts it. So that is very important for the SMEs to understand, and I think our speakers today have highlighted that, and that would be my
Absolutely, sir, and that is a most suitable closing statement for the session. I really appreciate and thank each one of you for being this session, and request Rajeshri to close this webinar.
Thank you, panelists, for exchanging your valuable thoughts on today's topic, essential automation techniques for SMEs. We hope you have enjoyed the session thoroughly. Before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Rajesh Nath, Mr. Himanshu Sharma, Mr. Zarwan Marolia, Mr. Bipin B. Jirge, and Mr. Gajanan Jadhav. I would also like to thank Mr. Gopal Anand and Mr. Prasad Nayak for taking this initiative. We request our delegates and viewers to stay connected with us on our social media handles. OEM Update Magazine is available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also download our app from Google Play and App Store. Thank you and goodbye.